Hi, Jazzie. I love your name. It makes me smile to say it. So it's so nice to have you on the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate it. I love my name too.
Is it your birth name or chosen name?
My birth name is Jasmine, so it's a nickname, but yeah, I grew up in a small town in California, and I have a sister. Her name is Savannah, and I met another family who had two daughters named Jasmine and Savannah, and Jasmine was my age, and Savannah was my sister's age. It was like a crazy, crazy, crazy coincidence. And so we all became friends, and Jasmine and I were pretty much inseparable at the time. And so it was like, how do we differentiate each other? So Jasmine and her sister went by Jasmine and Savannah, and then my sister and I went by Jazzie and Savvy, and it just stuck ever since. So
Oh, I love that story. That's amazing.
yeah,
And, what a cool mirroring, like true mirroring of they brought out the Jazzy and the Savvy in you, probably.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, a lot of crazy experiences. I think like I was 12, my sister was maybe 8 or something. So it was a very interesting dynamic, and it was a really cool friendship and everything like that. So, and crazy that it was in such a small town. The fact that,
Yeah.
I've met people who also are named Jasmine, but never somebody else whose sister's named Savannah.
Right. It's like
So it
almost like a
was
Black Mirror episode. You're meeting like a
completely like, what prank show am I on? Like, where are the
right.
cameras kind of thing.
Oh man, so you grew up in California, but I know you're in Barcelona now.
Yeah,
And I know that there's a big story around how you were called to this place. And I love how when we answer those callings, how everything just magically falls into place. So tell us
yeah,
a little bit about that with your move to Barcelona.
yeah, absolutely. It's something that still, when I think back on it, my brain can't fully comprehend because my Barcelona journey started 7 years ago when I moved, or when I came here with my ex, and I had this feeling like I could live here. I could totally live here. I could totally see myself here. And he was a narcissist, and it was not a very healthy relationship. And so he said no. I don't think we could move here. I don't see it. And so I was like, yeah, I guess it's fine in California. And then in 2022, I was working 3 jobs and working to just keep us afloat. I was the sole breadwinner. He wasn't working. And I was like, I'm working, I don't know, 16 hours a day for a life I don't want. This isn't even something that matters to me. And I don't enjoy California, like nothing against it, but I didn't find my people there. Like it just wasn't for me. And so I I decided to go on a trip, and it was just 2 months. It was 1 month in Puerto Rico and then 1 month in Portugal. And I was hoping maybe I could just scratch the travel itch for a bit, and then I could go back and, it would be fine. But what I came to realize is basically once you take something out of the box, you cannot put it back in the box, no matter how hard you try. And so I just kept going. And so 2 months turned into 4 months, turned into 6 months, turned into a year. And then in 2023, I started doing a trip around the world. So I went to 20 countries across 5 continents, and it was amazing and very hard. And I did it pretty much solo the entire time. And so it was a really big journey and lesson in who I am. And that's what I was really looking for, because this relationship of 8 years really felt like I had lost a huge part of myself. And every time I learned a new thing about myself, I just got hungrier and hungrier to keep finding out all these different things that made up my unique core. And so I during that trip around the world, I came to Barcelona in May, and in 3 days I was like, "Yep, this is it. Don't need to look any further. I'm going to finish this trip," because it was really important to me to keep that promise to myself. But I was like, once I'm done with this, I'm coming back to Barcelona, and this is going to be the place that I settle into. And so I came here in February of 2024. So it was like 7 years after I had that initial thought
Wow.
of, I really want to be in Barcelona, or I could totally live here. And it was the exact right decision because everything fell into place. It really felt like the universe was just saying, like, good job. Congratulations.
Thanks for
You
listening.
unlocked a level. Like, here's all the things that you get for getting to this level. Because I got here and I was able to find an apartment in 2 weeks. And everybody said that I wouldn't be able to find a long-term apartment. And I got something for up to 5 years. I got a contract for up to 5 years. And it couldn't have been a better contract because it's required 11 months, and then after that, it becomes month to month up to 5 years, which is
Perfect.
perfect. It's literally couldn't have been a better situation. And then the company that I signed with, they had an agreement with the bank, so I was able to get a bank account without having an ID or anything, having paid taxes, something everybody also said would be impossible. And so it was just like everything really fell into place. And I was sitting in my apartment the first night and I look out onto the balcony, and the little like poles on the balcony, they have butterflies on them. And my best friend, her and my symbol is butterflies. We have matching butterfly tattoos. And
Mm.
so it was just like completely perfect, every single thing that I looked for. And then within 3 weeks, I met one of my other best friends, and she's my first local, really local friend in my adult life. And then 6 months after that, I went to a bar and met the love of my life. And like everything just really felt like I was just meant to be here. And listening to that calling was like the best decision I could have ever made for myself.
Oh, it's so true. And what you're saying that I think the audience can hear loud and clear is that when you actually have the courage to follow the calling, because we all get the calling, and all of us are getting whispers, nudges, feelings. We get these intuitive hits, and we get so used to ignoring them. I mean, like, that's sounds crazy. That's impossible. That's, all the things that you were told about how it was going to be impossible for you to find an apartment. Nothing's impossible, right? When it's right and it is the absolute right thing for you, and you listen to that, the universe delivers, because that's just is what's meant to be. Everything aligns and it all just comes together. And I love that things kind of came in at different times. It was like, well, you had the immediacy of what you needed, of like, okay, I need a place to live. That's important. And then the relationships started to flow in, and meeting the love of your life in 6 months is just epic. But some people might think, well, why did it take that long? Well, there's also energetics of both what's meant to be and then divine timing. So it's like, okay, you were led there to have this experience to then unfold to a point. Maybe it was, and I don't know if you relate to this, maybe your heart opened up in that first 6 months in a new way
Yeah.
because you finally felt like, I did this and I made this choice. And what a beautiful and bold thing to say yes to yourself. And then maybe that allowed your heart to open up to the point of where, okay, now it's shining bright for that soulmate to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also want to just clarify that I was number one person saying, "Why isn't it happening yet? I want to find the love of my life. Where are they?" I remember getting on a phone call with one of my best friends, and I called her. I had just landed, like maybe it was the day after I had landed or even the day of, and I was like, "I've been here for like a day and I have not run into the love of my life yet. Where are you?" And it was really frustrating because I actually had another hit when I got here of like, oh, I can feel their energy. Like I know that they're here. And so one of my biggest lessons that I'm still continually learning is patience. It is not my strength. And so for me, it was actually that I had to be okay with being single. And it was so irritating. And I honestly don't even like saying that because so many people said that exact same thing to me. And I was like, I don't want to be single. Stop telling me that I have to be okay with being single because I want a relationship. But it wasn't necessarily that I had to be okay with being single. It was that I had to be okay just on my own. And it was like the next day after having that realization that I met the love of my life. My friends joke where it was like the universe had so many requests from me saying, like, give me the love of my life. Give me, I want him. I want him. And then the moment that I was okay with it, they were like, finally, okay, here, like, go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the divine timing was really, really important. There was a lot going on the first 6 months where I couldn't have had a relationship, you know, getting the visa and just the traveling that I still had to do and all this stuff. Like, I was just not in a headspace. And at the time, I didn't realize that. But now, after being in the relationship, I'm so much more aware of how much work and effort it takes and how much of my mental space it really does require, which it's something that I want for it to require, but it does take up a good amount of space that I just did not have at the time.
The intuitive hits that you mentioned that you received both when you got there, you felt him and his energy there. You received obviously the initial time when you first got there and arrived and you felt it. When you try to cultivate that and cultivate a life for the opening of that, what does that look like to you? Because you know how valuable it is, obviously. It's provided so much in your life. And so people like us, then when we get those benefits from it, let's say, or we prove that, wow, when I follow these hits, when I answer the calling, it puts me in a better place. So what do you do in your life to cultivate that and to make sure you're listening and to, I guess, not get caught up in the other noise?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, I'm still cultivating it. I've always been a pretty intuitive person, and there's a point in that last relationship where it felt like I didn't have that intuition. I wasn't honing that and I wasn't really listening to it because I did have those feelings so frequently where they were just saying, leave, go, do it. This isn't right. This isn't right. Like, I countless times. And so it's not to say that I listened to it and I went for it and I did it. It took me a long time to listen to those callings. And I did it in a very step by step way. It wasn't like I just took this leap of, I'm going to travel 2 years and I'm going to do all of this. It was very like 2 months, 2 more months, 3 months, go home for a bit. And then it was, okay, I'm going to start this big year thing, which was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It's not to say that I've just mastered or cultivated something where I can hear the calls all the time. It's more that you just have to they're going to remain there no matter how many times you ignore them.
Mhm.
They're always going to remain there. And so it's just about when you're ready saying okay to that. And I think when I was able to travel and take that leap and listen to that call, it made it easier to listen to the call like with my partner. And when a lot of fear or anything came up, I was like, no, but like this feels right. And that was probably the biggest difference is last year I really worked on embodiment and feeling in my nervous system and in my body what yes felt like, what safety felt like. And so I was able to really check in with myself. My mentor always calls it my monkey mind. Whenever it's like going crazy and everything's just like hectic, that's the monkey mind. And so whenever it got nervous or worried or anything, I could check in with my heart and my gut and everything and that felt safe. And I was like, every time I've ignored that this feels unsafe and this felt safe, I got into a sticky situation.
Mhm.
But anytime I've trusted that this was safe, even if this felt unsafe, I've been okay. And
Yeah.
so that has been the thing that I cultivate the most is checking in with myself and really feeling into the body of what does safety feel like for me?
Oh, I love that reversal. It's so true. And we get so cut off from the heart and the gut and the body in our modern world. Our intellect and our mind is so revered. And that's what, go study, become smart, get these
Yeah.
degrees, do all of this stuff to celebrate essentially the mind. Obviously, our intelligence as humans is pretty amazing. So glad that we have that capability. But to have it in lieu of body consciousness
Yeah.
and spiritual consciousness is not necessarily you don't want to necessarily give up one for the other. It really is about that holistic, integrated, full and whole experience of self rather than, oh, I'm just this floating brain and
Mhm.
head space. Oh, I'm actually this entire whole being that includes my soul and includes this experience of that in this body. So, what's that experience been like for you of having a sense of yourself as a soul or a spiritual person or somebody with, something outside of just this body mind?
Um, it's actually been a really interesting journey for me in terms of the connection to the body. It used to drive me crazy when people would say, just breathe, connect to your breath. That didn't make any sense to me. And one thing that I've noticed is a lot of people will say just right before doing something hard. But for them, it's really easy. But it's like, just breathe, just meditate, just eat, and all of these things, like as if it's not really difficult for some people. And so for me, that connection to my body was gone after dealing with sexual abuse and stuff like that. I disconnected as much as I could from my body to keep myself safe. And so coming back into the body was terrifying. It was one of the scariest things. I remember doing breath work or guided meditations and just start crying because I was so scared. And what I found was that my body wasn't actually mad at me like I thought it was. And so last year when I got to Barcelona, I really was working on that connection of the body back in with myself. And there has been difficulty with food. I have a disorder called ARFID, and so it's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. And so it makes eating just really challenging for me. Then, coupled with the traveling and everything, I was very not well nourished for the majority of my travels. And so, that coupled with the abuse and everything, I thought my body just hated me. And so, really trying to blend that and face the fears and understand that fear is not, I think so often we see fear as like this big wall barrier that we are not supposed to go past. And it's this bad feeling that we don't want. But really, it's just there to protect you. It's just there to say, hey, this is something new. This is something I don't know. Maybe like, let's try and, I don't know, let's just proceed with caution. But so often we see it as this like, nope, don't go any further. And so, really stepping as much as I could with grace and understanding and compassion, as much as I could hold with myself while doing all these scary things with myself. That was the thing that really connected me back, as well as looking into the masculine and feminine energies really helped me name things. And it's not in a gendered way at all, the masculine and feminine, not the way we see it reflected today, but in this way that everybody has both and everybody has a unique blend of both. And I see it like this dance that you have to be like, as your masculine rises, your feminine drops, and as your feminine rises, your masculine drops. And it just like dances and flows together. So seeing the masculine mind, the logic, the container, all of these different things within the masculine, and then also understanding the feminine and the feeling, the intuition, the creativity, seeing those flowing together helped me a lot. And understanding the balance was really, really important to bringing that whole mind body connection into one.
Mhm. Yeah, it's something that on this path of discovery, of living life this way, of where we're conscious to our programs, we're conscious to our entire life, not just being the life we lived, but the life we create, in having a consciousness to all of that is immediately, it's like you are connected, as you were saying, to energies. It's not just, oh, okay, my body and my brain and my
Yeah.
stories. It's like, oh, things live in energy, and they are this solid thing, but they are also energy, and then therefore everything is, right? When you
Yeah.
start to see in that way and experience life in that way, there's that sense of what you're saying, where you get to then choose, well, how am I going to work with this energy? And I think once we put it in that kind of ethereal nature, it's easy to think about how we work with it versus like, oh, this thing is solid, not moving, it's static, it can't change. So you can start to change your mind. You can start to change your body and your relationship with your body. You can start to change your behaviors. You can start to change even physical things like what you're manifesting into your life. Something that we also see as very concrete. These tangible things are so concrete. But when we move ourselves out into the energetic planes to look at that same thing, it's like, oh, it's not concrete at all. I can actually manipulate that and change those situations. So I know you made a big change within your business of going from working 3 jobs, trading a lot of time for money and not doing what you actually wanted to do, to creating a business that you love and that you enjoy and that you're passionate about, and that actually uses your time in what I will just say a right way, meaning we can use our time, like spending 16 hours when it's draining you because it's not the right thing is different than spending 16 hours doing something you love. Like you could lose yourself in 16 hours in something that you completely love, right? So tell us a little bit about that big shift. What happened there? Was that another listening to a calling and your higher self guiding you toward this?
Yeah. So the when I graduated from college, I just kind of went back to what I knew because I got a degree in peace and conflict studies and I had no idea what to do with it. I just knew that's what I wanted to study. And so I went to working retail, which is what I had done. And I had this pressure drilled into me throughout all of childhood within the family that I have, um of being impressive. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, working retail isn't impressive, but working 3 retail jobs is impressive. And so it was more about that, showing other people that I was impressive and getting that title. And so then I took a connection call with a family friend and told her about things that I was really interested in. And that led to her connecting me with somebody who became my mentor. And so we worked together for like 6 months, and she just helped me in lots of different ways. And she was a solopreneur, and she basically just said, I need some help in my business, and I really feel like I need it to be you. And I was like, okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Working from home a bit. I could quit one of my jobs. That sounds nice. And so I said yes. And I was just Googling literally everything because I had never been an assistant before. I'd never worked in an office or any kind of administrative role, really. But I was organized enough to have 3 jobs. I was organized enough to keep my own schedule so I could do that for her as well. And so I realized a few months in, after getting the opportunity to go to South Africa with my family for a hybrid work family trip, that I could do this remotely and I could make a business out of this. So I built my first website and started telling people, I'm starting a business helping people. If you know anybody that needs help, let me know. And everybody knows somebody that needs help. It was apparently a very good business strategy because I had 9 clients within the first 2 months and was super busy and working 16 hours again, and was overwhelmed, quit all my other jobs, and dug myself into a different form of the same thing. And so when I started traveling, I realized, or right before I started traveling, I realized I cannot travel like this. I don't want to be doing this. This feels way too much again. And so I cut down my amount of clients to about 5 clients and took that traveling. So it was kind of a fell into place while I was saying yes to opportunities and trying new things and everything, and made a ton of mistakes along the way. And virtual assistant work, the day to day administrative stuff, is not something that I am fully passionate about. Was a great way to have things that I was very passionate about, like traveling and freedom and control over how many hours I worked or who I worked with, stuff like that. But the work that I had to do was not aligned with what I loved. And so then last year I made a shift again. So I had been in business for like 2.5 years doing the VA stuff. And last year was a hard year, I think, for most people. And for my business as well, it was the lowest year that I had. And so I took it as this sign. Obviously, I'm not getting any clients trying to do the things that used to work. So I have to shift. And so I started working with a new client in July, and I took her on at a lower rate because I was like, I just need some new energy in my business. And I had worked with her before as her client. She's a coach and she's amazing. And I was like, okay, I just want to be working with her. So I'm going to take what she can pay me right now, and we're going to work together and see what can happen. And working with her actually shifted a lot for me in my business because I was able to work on the strategy of her business. I'm able to give her ideas that she uses. My thoughts were impacting her business. And that's what lit me up.
Mhm.
It was so fun to have influence and to be helping even more people because she is a coach. So she's helping tons of people. And so I shifted more into that and doing the strategy as well as the execution. So I still have the task management, project management, like execution of the tasks and the strategy that we create. But having the strategy aspect as well lit me up and made it so much more fun to be doing the business. And so then I realized that it was a combination of that strategy and that I loved working with this person. It was a lot of fun. It was so aligned. She's interesting and she's dynamic, and I really enjoyed that. So when I restructured my business, I focused on two things. I don't want people who just need a VA, and I want people whose energy is really on that frequency. It may look a little bit different, but the vibrational level is the same. And so um I started focusing on that, and I actually started referring to it as colors. So the way I see my clients are different colors of the rainbow. And so it's like um I worked with somebody who, to me, her color reflected beige. And I want super bright, vibrant people. Nothing wrong with beige, like at all. It does not work for me. And so I really was looking at it, like you were saying, from an energetics perspective and matching the people and calling in the people that energetically feel really good to me and not focusing on the money and building it up that way. So it was kind of like this, in terms of my entrepreneurial journey, it was kind of like this big spike at the beginning and then like a very constant flow and then like a big dip. And now it's starting to come back up, but in a much more aligned and sustainable way.
Having a life where we actually listen to ourselves and then therefore trust ourselves builds more trust in ourselves so that we can then make better decisions because it's all just building on itself, right? So every quote unquote mistake you make are all part of the beautiful building upon to get to even greater heights or deeper places or just more magic. I've recently stopped even using that word mistake or oh, I've had a low or dip, anything that kind of creates a value judgment of that experience that's negative, it's not useful. Even though it describes what it is. We're working with two different situations here. We're working with the what we've got in our physical earthly plane to communicate through, which are these words, and you and I right now are speaking in English words, and that's what we've got to describe as something. But then we've got energy, and we've got the feeling of that, and we've got the experience of the truth of what something is. And the truth of a dip is that it's a catapult to the next level. And when we live that way, where we actually use it as a catapult, and we use it as a time to regroup, right? Those
Mhm.
lows are just like, oh, it's such a beautiful time to regroup and go, okay, well, what color do I want to align with? It's not beige. Okay, I got to push that out. Going
Yeah.
for purple. It allows us to see and evaluate and really get clear. So it's like, oh, it's not a low, it's a time of clarity, or it's a time of regrouping, or whatever it is. And I'm not saying this to say you change your words. It's just how I've been thinking about it lately, because all of life is so valuable. The
Yeah.
worst shit that's ever happened to me has been the most valuable. So how do I reframe it so that I can actually hold it in that light to be like, wow, that abuse I suffered as well from that trauma, that accident, whatever it is, was one of the most fruitful, beautiful things that happened to me to get me to where I am, to be the person that I am, to understand the world in the way that I do, to see in the way that I do, to connect in the way that I do. So isn't that beautiful? Isn't that
Yeah.
so positive? Isn't that a high then, if we want to evaluate it in that way? So it's just such an interesting shifting that I've been going through. And I don't know if you relate to any of that, of how we kind of change our stories in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest shifts that I've had, because one thing I've I grew up in a space that was very focused on the positive, which can be great, but also can disregard other emotions that aren't seen as positive. And so, one of the biggest shifts that I've been working on is this idea that hard and difficult don't necessarily equate to bad.
Hmm.
So these emotions, these lows, these feelings of "Ugh, things are hard right now." It doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad. It just means that they're hard. And seeing the evidence that I've created of all the hard things that I've gotten through really, really helped me to understand that I can do all these hard things. I can do it because I've done hard things. And the life that I was living before in California was hard. And the life that I'm living now is still hard in different ways. It's not that it's just like you snap into alignment and you make these decisions and life is just rainbows and sunshine all the time. It's way brighter and more vibrant than I could have ever imagined. And it's still hard. And having that shift made it feel like I can manage the things that I have to go through. It doesn't have to be that it brings me so, so deep down. And the other thing I want to say to that is the deeper, the lower that we go, the higher we can go. So if you're talking about the catapult, like the further you pull the catapult back, the farther the ball launches. And so for me, those deep, deep, difficult points, like, of course, you have to feel them. You have to be in them because if you don't, then you just float above and you stay in this like content neutral between like 0 and 30% kind of feeling. And life is, it's fine there. It's not bad. It's not amazing. It's just cool. You can ride that if you want to ride that. But if you want to feel to the 100%, you have to go to the same depth. You have to go down as far as you want to go up. And so for me, those difficult points were really like, I have to feel these because I know how good I can feel. I know that level of joy and pure energy that just like flows out of me. I would go on walks and my smile would be so big. I'd have people stopping me and saying like, "You like love your energy. You have a great smile." Stuff like that. I would have people stopping me all the time because I was on that good natural high energy. But to be there, I really, really had to be low too. And I think the thing that I care most about sharing is that it's okay to feel low. It's okay to feel just deep in things and to your point of shifting out of like that low doesn't mean that it's bad or that it's going to stay like that forever or anything like that. There's a way to accept and not go into the negative.
Yes, it's so true. And it's the same with, if we're calling these polarities negative and positive, that in that positive realm that you talked about, your family life, and so much of American culture is that too, of just like fake positivity. Certainly within the spiritual world, all the spiritual bypassers, right? They live there too, of just like the unicorns and rainbows place, and aren't aren't experiencing that fullness of what, not that it's wrong, just like you said, you can operate there, you can have a okay, fine life there. But for those called to, because they're like, something's wrong, can't be all that it is, something
Yeah.
isn't right with this level that I'm on. And when you're called out of that, then you're usually shot down. Okay, you're ready. Let's go. And you're going to go into the depths, and you're going to go into the darkness, and you're going to have that dark night of the soul or whatever is down there for you to feel. Just like you said, it's all about feeling. It's all about feeling it and experiencing it rather than avoiding it and floating above it. As you so eloquently put it, that floating above doesn't mean it goes away, but it will end up coming and biting you in the ass in a variety of ways, whether that's an unsatisfactory relationship or a bad job situation or a constant state of being chasing money, or however it's going to look. The listening to that call when you do have it is the most important thing, to be like, okay, there's a reason that this doesn't feel satisfactory to me. There's a reason that this doesn't feel fulfilling. There's a reason that this feels wrong. There's got to be something more. It's because there is, and you're being called to it. But if you're not called to it, then, maybe, yeah, that is your path in this lifetime, to kind of live in that place. But for those of us, and anyone certainly tuning into this podcast, are those that are called to up leveling their life.
Yeah,
And I just love your
absolutely.
story. You've up leveled in so many ways and continue to. What are you feeling called to recently?
This year feels like stepping into the new level that I have been working so hard to embody, to learn, to like all of the different steps that are needed to get to getting to that next level. That's what I'm excited about. I've been reading some books from Dr. Brian Weiss about past life regression and just the idea that we live multiple lives and that we are souls. And that has given me a lot of comfort and understanding, and it has really shifted a lot for me to be fully trusting of things, to be aware of what I need to do, and to have a lot more confidence. And so a bit about a question that you asked me before about my view on souls, and that is the other thing spiritually that I really want to be focusing on this year, is stepping into what am I learning, and what and listening to those intuitive calls and seeing people and the world that we live on as just this energy. And so that's what I'm really feeling called to right now.
So exciting. And this is exactly why we created this Epic Entrepreneur program, because I want to support people who are doing businesses in a soul-led way, meaning they answered the call. It's something that they're on a mission to do here. So it's mission driven in a different way. It's soul mission driven versus maybe how a corporation might use that terms mission driven, following of that calling into and into the building of an empire of your own making. And we can all get there. We can absolutely all do that. And I feel like the missing links for a lot of business owners are understanding what the true energetics of entrepreneurship. So the program actually builds in, it's both business strategy and tried and true entrepreneurial strategy, all through an energetic lens, all of it around alignment to your genius, alignment to your passions, so that the energy that you expend is feeding you back twofold. It is connection to the greater source and the creativity that exists, because we can tap into all of that. We do, right? That's where all these hits come from. They don't just come out
Mhm.
of nowhere. They come from the collective, and we get to be the channel for that. If we listen and do something with it, amazing. If we don't, it's going to go into someone else and they're going to potentially do something with that. But it's available for all of us. And so this program is really unique because it's actually tapping you into that channeling ability of this collective consciousness, of source consciousness. And then you're working with 5 incredible multidimensional business mentors. So you're actually getting advice from entrepreneurs who've been in business for 10 plus. I've been in business for 25 years, but 10 plus or more years, who've also answered the call and are walking the walk and are operating from this place of, we can do business differently. We can actually do things faster, more effectively, with better impact and an abundance of energy when we shift the way we work. I don't believe in the you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can absolutely have the whole cake. You can have as many cakes as you want, all different flavors, anytime, because we are the co-creators in that experience. And actually working from that place is exciting, because even spiritual entrepreneurs get stuck in the hustle and grind and the trading time for money cycles and the not charging enough. The programs of those run so deep that it even impacts soulful, passion led, mission driven businesses. There'll be more about Epic Entrepreneur in the show notes for anybody listening who wants to tap in and tune into this. Jazzie is such an amazing example of somebody who's listened to the call, who's had the courage to follow that calling, because we can all often hear it, but the big leap, whether it's a small step, the big leap is actually in doing something about that and making a move of any sort, making just a teeny step towards, and then that just opens up the floodgates. And I love how that's opened up the floodgates for you to receive the life that you're meant to have. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and all of your insight.
Thank you so much for having me. I want to just mention one thing about um, your program that is so powerful, and that people don't quite see so much in this entrepreneurship world. Ton of people love this idea of building something on their own, and it's great. Love having more and more people building something of their own. And it can also be incredibly lonely because you're building it on your own. And so having a program like this where you're not alone, where you're shown different things, where you're aligned with the people who are creating it, so that they have your back. It's a really, really, really powerful thing when you're getting started or even in the beginning of the business, because there's so much to figure out. There's so many different things. Owning a business in and of itself is a job, but then you have to also do the thing that you're providing services for.
Right.
So it's really multiple jobs all in one. And so having that guidance is so, so valuable. It's so powerful. I know that if I had a program like that, I probably would have found these things a lot sooner. And that's not my path, and that's completely fine. But I am so inspired by the what you're creating with this, because I really feel like it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you so much for saying that. And it's absolutely true. I'm creating the program I wish I had. back 25 years ago and have learned all these things along the way. I'm so happy that we got to learn more about your dreams and how you're living them, and can't wait to continue to follow your journey, Jazzie.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.